Cool, so I've got Substance Painter open. Yeah, and this is UI. I don't really want us to talk much about it. We'll just go through it as we go along. Very similar to Photoshop. In fact, it's owned by Adobe now anyway. So first of all, we're just going to go straight to File, New, and this is how we're going to load in our geometry. So we've got templates here, but I'm just going to leave it as metallic roughness and select our geometry. So we've got our bubble base there. Click OK. And then I'm going to change my resolution to 4096 because I just want the maximum resolution. But we can change this as we're working. And I'm just going to select OK. And hopefully that should load our model. So on our left is our 3D view. And down at the bottom here is kind of like our material palette and all our tools and stuff. And we'll go on to that. And on our right, it depends on how you like setting it up. I actually quite like the default view. I like being able to jump around to my UVs and have my, for me this is pretty good setup, but you can modify it. Oh, so we've got a model in, and you want to just check around, do like another sanity check on it, that you've got no sort of like, if you've got some dodgy geo, it will come through sort of, one, it won't look like this, and it will kind of look like it's a bit ghosted, inside out, opaque sort of look. You'll know if it's wrong, basically. And hopefully yours should be smooth as well. I actually forgot to mention that, but before you, yours might be faceted. So when you're in Maya, so there's a good chance that yours might look like this. Mesh display, hardened edge or something like that. And you have these sort of jaggedy edges. So before you export it, sorry, I probably should have said this, you want to soften your edges. So you just want to go to the mesh display and soften edge, and that will give you soften edges in, because it doesn't smooth in Substance. But it'll give you that look. Cool, so right now you can paint on it, but it's not doing what we want. The reason why we use Substance is because it's really good texture baking sort of tools. So over in our right, we've got our sort of layers. So this will look like Photoshop, and it works in pretty much the same way. And over here, we've got our texture set settings. So we're not doing anything super special with this. Probably the most special thing is the eyes, and we'll just do that in Maya. We don't need to texture it. So the first thing that we need to do is bake our mesh maps. And basically it's going to bake all our sort of our normal maps, world space maps, ambient occlusion. So our comment, we don't have to change much on this either. So I'm just going to change this to 4096 as well, so it's matching. And if you wanted to test if it's baking, because depending on your computer, this could take a long time, you can turn all these off. And your ambient occlusion is usually the fastest, and you can run that to test if it works, because sometimes you could go through all this and something might be broken on it. I won't do that. Well, let's do it, yeah. So I'm just going to turn it off and just bake selected textures, and it's just only going to be the ambient occlusion, because this is usually the quickest one. And if there's anything wrong with our textures, our UVs or model, it will be very obvious. You'll be able to see if there's anything wrong. So this is a good sort of, you can either just do all of them at once and wait, like depending on how good your computer is. Then be like, something's not working. Or you can just do this, and it should show you if everything's working fairly quickly. But it's up to you. I tend to always do this just because it's a nice little sanity check before you actually get into it. There's nothing worse than waiting around for ages, then you realise something's not working. But it should be fairly obvious once you've loaded it in. And you can see, even though this is the quickest one, it's still taking a little bit of time. So you can imagine the other ones are going to take a little bit longer. Cool, and that's done. So if we go to our material and we can select our ambient occlusion map, and we can just have a little look around and see what it's doing. And you can see it's baked all our maps out. Well, not all our maps, just our ambient occlusion. And it's all looking pretty good. Doesn't seem to be anything crazy going on. And we can check our UVs as well. Like, you'll know if something's wrong. It will just do some weird stuff. I probably should have made a broken one to sort of explain that, but yeah. So if it's all looking fine, you're getting something like this. It's probably safe to say we can just go through and could probably turn it off, but I'm just going to go through the whole thing. Just bake selected textures. If I just move this out of the way, you can watch the whole process of it baking out. So you can see the sort of list it's going through, and you notice that it's got no, it's not. I don't think I'd named the right thing. I've actually just named the thing. It's actually, but you can see it's sort of up in your texture set list. It's splitting everything out to our sort of metal material and our rubber and our glass, our light, sorry, even though we're not using it. But you can see that this is probably going to take, because we're on a, it doesn't take that long, but it's like one of those things that you can set going. Once you know it's going to work, just set it going and go get a coffee or something. This should probably be the texturing side of this is probably going to be the quickest part of this tutorial. Not because it's simple or anything. It's just because we're going to get a lot of this with like most of the texture maps and the procedural maps in here, and it's not an overly complicated model. If you look in the advert, it's not super dirty or bashed up, but we can do one version for, I'll tell you what, we'll do one version for the advert, and we'll do one kind of like, let's do one beat up and just see what we can do with it and just do whatever. So you can have a little play of it. And like the best thing that you can do with Substance is learn the basics, which we'll do, then just play with it. But also have a little play of the smart materials, but don't use the, like, figure out how you can make your own materials in it, because it's very easy to select a smart material and be like, oh, that's fine, but actually you could probably push it a lot further with a much simpler material. But yeah, you can sort of see how long this is taking now. But because these are going to be short, I don't know whether to do lots of short ones or do it all in one big one, because we'll probably get it all done. I'll do it in short ones, and I'll just release them probably every other day, I guess. But yeah, hopefully I probably could have fast forwarded this, but I don't know. I guess it's nice for you to watch. Looking at all the pretty maps get baked out. But yeah, hope you've been enjoying. I know the modelling stage and the UV stage has taken a long time, but generally it does. So there's no usually, because you can use sort of triplanar stuff, which we will use in this, but which will you can get away with not UVing stuff, but then if you need to paint some custom stuff on it, it's not really ideal. So I know it having to sort of avoid UVing has its perks, but also in the long run you're going to kind of need to do it. Hopefully it shouldn't take much longer now. Yeah, I'll break this down into smaller chunks and just release them all at once. Probably will only be in about an hour's worth of tutorial anyway, and it's probably, I know I've got to experiment with my tutorial lengths because I don't think people are watching the long ones. Hopefully it shouldn't be too much longer. We probably could have skipped the thickness because the thickness is kind of, if you want to do subsurface, but that does actually have its uses. And that's done now, so we can select OK. And we'll just go to our material. And you'll notice it's not done anything, but we can check all our, so we've got our normal, which you won't be able to see anything. World space normal. So it's kind of cool to look at. ID, we didn't give it any IDs, so curvature. So you can see we've got a curve map, curvature maps, position, thickness that we probably won't use, but it's kind of a bit everywhere. I guess that's probably quite thick there, but yeah. So that's loading in your geometry and baking out your texture maps, and in the next one we'll just start making our base material. In fact, the next one we'll just play around with some of the smart materials. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and don't forget that like and subscribe, it really does help. And thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.